Just thinking about environmental justice, I've been involved with our group, Nimiipuu Protecting the Environment. Actually, I was one of the founders or co-founders, and so what we started out doing was looking at, I don't know if everyone's heard of it, we had a big, the Exxon Mobil at first through Idaho, through our area, territory, I guess you call it, treaty area, they're trying to bring these megalos that were big to the tar sands up to the Beaver Creek. We had some relatives up Beaver Creek, Cree Nations up in Canada. They're right next to the tar sands, and so ExxonMobil was trying to bring them to Portland, Lewiston, and then take them over to Montana and up into Alberta. And so that was the first big event we had. We had a big protest. When we first started that out, it was like a small group, myself, a couple other people were trying to protest it. Our tribe got involved. We did a big blockade. It was August 2014. And so that is what kind of spurred us to start looking at other issues. And a big issue we have right now, I don't have to watch, so I'm not tracking the time, so you won't quit talking, so I'll talk all day. But anyway, so one of the big issues we started looking at was the treaty right we have to take. We have a treaty it's called the Treaty with the Nez Perces of 1855, and it guaranteed us, we ceded about, I think, 15 million acres to the U.S. government in 1855, but we retained hunting, fishing, and gathering rights within those areas. And so that means like unusual and a custom, what they call. So that means I can hunt, fish, gather roots, medicine, berries, whatever, within that area without, we don't have tags, we're not subject to the state of Idaho rules and regulations, so we have that right, and that's something we agreed upon, or not me, but our ancestors agreed upon many years ago. And so what we're doing with our group today is looking at this issue. It's kind of, I don't know if it's necessarily environmental justice. I guess it's bringing justice to an agreement that the U.S. government currently has with us to abide by the treaty that we signed, they signed, and so we're trying to keep that enforced. Right now, our big issue with the salmon is on the snake, which come up to the headwaters, subway locks, and other areas to spawn. And so with the 4 lower Snake River dams, those fish are diminishing, and I believe, along with other people, the runs are going to go extinct if we don't do something like Jacob was talking about the climate change, about fossil fuels. Everyone drives cars with gas, of course I do. So we use electric for the houses, but we're pushing, and our tribe is really strong with some other groups throughout the Pacific Northwest, like my brother here from Colville, Yakima, other tribes, Lummi tribe we hooked up with last year, pushing to breach the dams because if you heard about, the Lummi are really big because the orcas, that's where they live, near their area, the orcas, and I'm sure you've heard about the orcas plight right now, and they feed on Chinook salmon. And those Chinook salmon are spawned up in the headwaters in our area, in our treaty area, and then they go back to the ocean, and that's where they feed on the orca. But in between there's those 4 dams, and so those, whether they're baby, the big thing I learned long ago was when you think about fish, like the baby smolts they call them, they're hatched, and they're supposed to be able to float to the ocean, not fish, swim. They're supposed to be able to float, and those dams, they have those big reservoirs now. Behind the dams, there's 4 of them, and so that impedes their travel, and they get really hot in the summer. And so that really kills them basically. Then they have to come back up. Some, they have ladders, albeit, but they have the turbines, and those kill more. And so we're having this big battle with the federal government, and to try to get those dams breached. And what that means, I know people think remove, but there's a part, those 4 lower Snake River dams, they have half of them are earthen and half are concrete, so they can move the earthen part. That's what breach means. Then that will allow the water to freely flow, and it'll be cooler because the warm water is what really gets those fish too, the baby smolt or the adults when they come back and go back down. So that's a big issue we're working on. And we also have some youth programs we talk to the kids about. Every Wednesday we have 34th and 5th graders come to our little Nimiipuu canoe site, we call it. And this is all on our Facebook too, Nimiipuu Protecting the Environment, where they come and they learn about paddle making. We've carved a couple canoes, which we brought back to our reservation because they hadn't been carved in like 100 years, and so we started that, and now we've been doing it about 5 or 6 years. So the kids are learning how to carve and woodworking, using tools, and they do arts and craft, beadwork, metalwork, etc. at our activities. And the main thing, I guess, like I was saying about environmental justice, to me, it's more, my perspective is more like looking at, as I was talking to this guy, he's working on his PhD at Harvard, and he was talking about this new movement. It's called Rights of Nature, Rights of Mother Earth. And I was telling him, like, he asked me, why are you involved in this? What does it mean? And I explained to him that I believe, and a lot of my people believe that life is important, whether it's the life of a wolf, the life of a grizzly bear, or deer, elk, or salmon in the river, or even the water. Because, like we're all religious here, I guess. I'm Catholic, I went to Gonzaga, but I was raised that way. But it's kind of like that, the creator or God, whatever you want to call him, made these, created the water, created the land, created the forest, and created the elk and deer and wolves and grizzly bears. And so I feel that, like, in my life, I want to be able to work on making sure that we protect those. And because it is important, and there's varying issues on wolves in Idaho. We're involved in lawsuits in Wyoming and Montana with Earth Justice and Sierra Club and a bunch of other groups on protecting the wolves, because the big thing with they have the Endangered Species Act, where if an animal gets listed, like threatened or endangered, that's what the salmon are right now. Some of the runs of the salmon are endangered. So what happens is when they're taken off that list and delisted, the states have control over it, not the tribe. No tribes have ever, that I've tried to find out, that can manage any delisted species. That's another issue we're working on. And to me, it just seems strange that the tribes, we have treaty rights within this 55 area, 5 or 6 national forests down north central Idaho and in Montana and other areas along the Columbia to fish. But it seems weird that the state doesn't even recognize us as an entity, like someone was saying. It's just like we got the federal government, the states, and the local governments. The tribes are always kind of like, well, yeah, that was it. And a lot of people think the tribes have just gone away. Like, oh, you're a tribal war. What does that mean? Like, we thought that went away, 100 years ago, but it's not. I'm in rural Nespers. I went to Gonzaga. I worked out on my tribe, and I worked with this nonprofit environmental group. And so it's kind of like, we have these rights that we're trying to continue to protect, and essentially, with my work with the young people, the 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders, what I look at is what can I do today, whether it's the salmon, fishing, which are important to us, the ceremonies for salmon, at services we have some funerals we have salmon, that's part of our culture, and so we're trying to protect that and make sure that these kids have that for their future, just like those people that signed that treaty with their ex, protecting my rights to hunt, fish, and gather. So, but if you want to check out what we're doing, we have a website and a Facebook, Nimiipuu Protecting the Environment. So I'm glad that you all came, because I think it is an important part. To me, it's an important part. Whatever spiritually you believe, that life is life, and it needs to be protected. We all need water, and our fight for salmon isn't just for the Nez person to take salmon, because everyone eats salmon. And it's like I was telling, one time we had this pastor come over to our group, and I told him, the Nez person were fishermen, just like, who? our fishermen. So, he liked that, so I thought that was a pretty good analogy. Thanks a lot.